And boom, what up, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Veterans Day, and we got a vet here from military service to venture capital. He's going to offer us some insight into the entrepreneurship, community leadership, and investing in early stage technology companies. So let's take a look at what we got for today's episode. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Buzz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a good Veterans Day episode for you guys today. We have a remarkable guest joining us from the managing partners of Cortado Ventures. He's a versatile senior executive entrepreneur and a recognized leader in the world of venture capital. His journey from military services to successful entrepreneurship is nothing short of inspiring. During our conversation, we're going to delve into his experience in building and investing growth-driven technology companies, his role as a young global leader in the World Economic Forum, and his dedication to community advocacy. So stay tuned as we explore the intersection of community leadership with a true thought leader in today's business landscape. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Nathaniel Harding. All right, Nathaniel, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the kind words.
Of course, dude, you're making things happen out there. I'm going to start off with the first question, which is always the most obvious question. Everybody who comes on the show is promoting something. They want to get their message out to a specific audience. What is that? What is it that you do for a living? If you can explain it like so a fifth grader could understand it, what is that?
We invest in high-tech startups, and so we love meeting entrepreneurs who are building amazing things, innovative products, and we back them at the earliest stages, pure and simple.
Dude, it's the world is drastically going in your favor. There's a lot of technology companies that are making strides into the tech space. People who didn't think that technology was a big part of their industry are now starting to incorporate things, kind of revolutionizing different types of industries. So who are you going after specifically? Who's that target audience? What kind of tech companies?
Yeah, we look for companies where the digital and the physical worlds meet. So think of AI, but like in a physical setting. So AI in a refinery or advanced manufacturing, or think of like digital technologies for managing drones, or improvements in managing energy infrastructure. So like software that's used to manage all the energy infrastructure. So think of like pipelines and buried lines, things that drive our modern life. We're looking for people who are building the tech, software, hardware, that's making that more efficient, more powerful, and a better experience.
Walk me through your background. How did you get to be in this space? I mean, there's a number of different opportunities that are out in the world today. What was your education background? What brought you to venture capital?
Yeah, my education, I was a mechanical engineer by degree, but I also have a degree in Russian language. I've forgotten most of the Russian, but that's definitely in there. I also was a petroleum engineer by profession and by professional license. And then in the Air Force, I was a civil engineer. So lots of experience working, in the built environment. So whether that be in logistics or in energy production. So that was my training, my background. And but then also later in my career, we worked with private equity partners who were backing the companies that we were building. And then we ended up selling to a private equity buyer. So I had an experience working with outside capital and private capital. So now I'm on that side of the table. I'm on the investor side of the table.
How do you like that, man? Traveling from being on one side where you're looking for funding and then now flipping it to where you're the one providing the funding. I feel like every entrepreneur kind of has that goal in mind. They have to have, I hope that they have an exit strategy in place when they're starting their businesses. Sometimes scaling requires some of that outside capital. And maybe even at some point selling off to a venture capital like that. What was it like for you stepping into that space and making that transition from being on the side of the table that's receiving the funds to now being on the side of the table delivering?
I think there's definitely a certain amount of empathy. I know what founders are going through when they're raising that capital. I know the struggle between trying to run a company while trying to raise capital and build a team, and so understanding that, but then also I think as an investor having insight on what really counts. And so when you're investing in early stage companies, there's not a lot of track record. There's very little financial records, and so you're really not underwriting that. What you're looking for is amazing talent and gritty entrepreneurs. So coming from that background, I think not only does it just give you that ability to relate, but I think it makes you a better investor.
I feel like when you take on capital, you kind of gain a new responsibility. You have shareholders that you have to report to. You lose a little bit of the control, but at the same time, you kind of get a little bit more of that mentorship and guidance that is very necessary for any team or any company that's going to grow and scale. Um, Along the way, entrepreneurs are going to make mistakes. I'm sure you've made some mistakes along the way as well. What are some of those big mistakes either you've made or you've seen companies make that kind of hinder them from either getting the financing that they're looking for or helping take their company to that next level?
Yeah, a common mistake. Well, I've definitely had some zeros. I've had unsuccessful efforts in starting companies and or projects that didn't work out. An error or a fault that I fell into was really trying to be too fancy with what we were trying to do, and trying taking on too many risks all at once, and so kind of a misallocation between what amount of risk we're willing to take on. Like you can have technical risk, you can have execution risk, you can have scaling risk, and really understanding where those risks are and only taking the ones that you need to. But I will say, then matching the capital. So something that I'll definitely advise any entrepreneur is you have to have the right kind of capital partner. There's right kinds of investors for your stage, for your objectives, and being aligned is really important. Because for one, you'll have more success just actually landing an investor if you want one. But also long term, as you're growing, you'll be aligned in that path. But then to answer the other part of the question, like what's a mistake that I see entrepreneurs making, is whenever I see a founder not understand that, when in the early stages, you're the CEO, but you're also the number one salesperson. You're the number one, the only investor relations person. Like you need to be doing all of it. You can't outsource any of that. You can have a co-founder that maybe you're more business oriented and your co-founder is technical or vice versa. But outsourcing either to a consultant or to an employee the responsibilities of selling and raising capital, it's just a losing strategy, and you're not aligned with the fact that you got to be the chief visionary and making it happen and figuring out who are your first 10 customers and just crushing it on making them happy and then scaling that process. It has to be you doing that.
Cookies are for closers, right? Like at the end of the day, that's how you're going to end up making that deal is you got to be in the forefront. You're also when you're up there and you're making the pitches, you're the one who's learning what kind of feedback is coming back. You're there firsthand kind of understanding what different venture capitalists are looking for, what corrections you need to make. And so you're the head of the ship here. You're the one who has to make those corrections along the way. It makes a huge difference. Normally, I mean, today's a holiday, so I'm not in the classroom, but normally I'd have a live studio audience of about 30 plus high school seniors that are going to graduate and go out in the world. Some of them have aspirations of being entrepreneurs, of just avoiding corporate America themselves and just going into something on their own. Based on your experience now being on both sides of the table here, helping founders kind of grow their companies, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs who are starting out in the world today where they've grown up with nothing but tech, whether in their hands or in the classrooms or just everything that they're doing? There's so much opportunity out there. I think it sometimes can be overwhelming. What advice would you give them?
I'd say develop a technical skill. It doesn't mean that you have to go to a four-year university or pay a lot of tuition to get that technical experience. It could mean learning to code, or it could mean being an apprentice somewhere or interning somewhere where you can kind of learn on the job. But getting a technical skill even if it's not the technical skill you end up using, and as you build your company, just speaking the language, having some familiarity with it, having a network where you can find people that have that ability, that's really important. In the world where AI is taking over more and more of the kind of just repetitive processes, I would also advise a young person that has an entrepreneurial leaning to develop their problem solving and creativity skills. And so like definitely appreciate the arts. Some people talk about STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, sometimes arts and math, spelling STEAM. So it's very much important that in this modern age, that really developing your sense of problem solving and creativity is very much an entrepreneurial skill. And being able to use kind of both sides of your brain, the technical side, but also like the storytelling side. And that's the last piece of advice I would give is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to sell people, whether it's those first customers, whether it's those first employees or investors, you got to sell people on a vision. So being able to communicate, being able to, tell that story is really, really important. And there's ways, you can really even just learning online or watching YouTube videos about, people even call it storytelling or storytelling for entrepreneurs. I think that's a really important skill that's hard to find in a formal setting, but really important to develop.
I've heard a saying that kind of has stuck with me a lot. It's that facts tell and stories sell. And you're kind of harping on that essentially here. You probably sit in front of so many different founders pitching to you over and over again, and they're probably telling you all the benefits of their product, not really kind of infusing it in a story that can really put forth their vision. When you were on the other side of the table, what were some of the skill sets or maybe a story that you can share with us that kind of brings that home, right? That you're able to kind of share a vision. Maybe it's a story of a company that you've helped kind of grow, where the facts could have said something in and of itself, but the story really hooked that capital.
I'd say the common elements of a successful pitch, whether it's pitching, a venture capital firm, or if you're trying to get buy-in from like that first key, like co-founder or whoever it is, the key elements are answering three questions: why this, why you, why now? Like, why is this idea or product or service important? Why are you the one to bring it into the world? What is it about your personal story and skill set why you're the one to do that? And why now? Why is the market ready? Why are you not too early, not too late? Answering those three questions in your mind and being able to even answer them in a pitch, I think is a unifying theme of any successful pitch.
And it's tough to do. It sounds easy when you put it down in three questions, but it's not always the easiest to kind of put together in a cohesive story that definitely sells. And this is why I think you were kind of stating earlier that the founder needs to be the one that's going out and kind of formulating this pitch, because as they do these practice runs, I mean, hopefully you land them, obviously, but you're at least getting the feedback to kind of develop and fine tune that story as you kind of work through it. What do you feel that Cortado does best? Like, there's a bunch of different venture capitalist firms out there. There's different opportunities that founders can go to, but they come to you specifically for something beyond just the capital. What is that?
I would say connections to customers and understanding of that grind of being an early stage founder. So having been that, so what my partners and I have in common is we've all built and sold company, had 9-figure exits. And so we've built up a great network of connections, but also we actually provide free executive coaching. So through our friends at Magellan Executive Partners, we actually offer free executive coaching to any of the founders in our portfolio that want to do it. That's really unique. You're not going to find any firm that's less than $1 billion in our management that has something like that. But we just think it's so important. We live it. I have an executive coach. That's a really unique aspect. But then the customer connection aspect. I recently asked one of our portfolio company founders, give me a list of your top ideal customers that you want to get. And he gave me a list of like 15 people. I knew the CEOs or the top decision makers at like a dozen of those companies and made those connections. That's really powerful. It's important to get that first customer set as you're launching a product.
So when a founder is actually looking for capital, I feel like the one I think everybody can relate to is like Shark Tank, right? People show up to Shark Tank when they have a product that they want a little bit of help with. And sometimes they're looking for money directly, but sometimes they're looking for a specific shark that has a specific skill set or a specific connection. If you could place yourself on the other side of the table again, what should a founder be looking for when they're looking to go shop for capital? I mean, you have that executive coaching, which makes a huge difference. Again, it's the connections. What should they be looking for internally for themselves, and then kind of looking when they go out shopping for that venture?
They need to be looking for door openers. So whether that is to customers, whether that's to strategic partners or channel partners, so people that basically you can, like a corporate partner that you can work with that will actually sell your product for you, or whether that be, getting an amazing board member that has built a company in exactly the same sector. But overall, I just call it being a door opener. And it's going to be different for what stage you're at, and where you need to kind of fill in among those different areas. But you want somebody to be door open. And sometimes it's a celebrity. I think of the Shark Tank, and you tell somebody you have Mark Cuban on your cap table, then like that's going to open doors in different ways. But that's really what you're looking for, is somebody who can do that for you, or even just I've referred to as a door unlocker. I've seen somebody to unlock the door, like I'll open it, I'll sell, I'll close the deal, but I just need somebody who can point me in the right direction. And so, that requires operating experience, that requires an amazing network that you're looking for whenever you're looking for a capital partner.
I want to take you back a little bit when you were sitting on the other side of the table, looking for capital partners. Your business does well after that fact, and then you finally secure a 9-figure exit. Walk me through what kind of life-changing events happen as an entrepreneur for you. Maybe milestones or markers that kind of put you in a path where you realize, look, dude, I'm taking the right steps. Because I know as an entrepreneur, everybody has hurdles and fires that they got to put out, and there's always things going wrong, and they got to fix things here and there. But what are those kind of key indicators as an entrepreneur that you're on the right path?
Yeah, I think when you start to get inbound opportunities, so whatever business you're building, when you start to get people pitching you on why they should, why you should take their money, or, why you should work with them. When we've had those moments, or when we've invested in companies that have had those moments, that just starts to happen, and it becomes this flywheel effect of, you get an inbound, interested customer, well, then they're referring others. And now all of a sudden they're like competing for your business or for their investment. That's when absolutely that you're onto something special. And the more that you can just pile into that, the more success you're going to have, because you're going to just entrench more in whatever that unique value proposition is. So that's absolutely, one way. And there's times that I think any entrepreneur can tell you that you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have things not pan out. And especially in startup land, plan A is never the one that works. And so being able to also learn from when you're getting negative signals. So earlier I was describing positive signals, like how do you know you're on the right path, but also being able to admit to yourself and having mentors around you that can be honest with you that, hey, this plan isn't working. You need to pivot. And as an investor, we've had situations where what we invested in wasn't working out. That company pivoted, and now I have some examples where there's some of the best companies in the portfolio. And so being able to respond to negative signals is just as important as responding to positive ones.
Speaking of some negative signals and responding, I feel like every company does something really, really well, which is why they become successful, which is why they get those inbound deals coming in. But then they need to work on some stuff. They either need to become more efficient, they need to get better at what they're doing, providing more value for their clients, doing something that will take them to that next level in their business. For you guys over there at Cortado Ventures, what do you feel like that you're doing to kind of improve upon or bring more value to your portfolios that come in?
Yeah, actually, I'll maybe give an answer that's perhaps unexpected. For us, it's knowing when we're not the right lead investor. So as a company grows, and we invest at the seed stage, but they grow to Series A, Series B, there is a point where we're no longer the right one to be on the board. And so instead, because it's not the right stage of growth, like I don't know how to advise a company that's about to, have an IPO. I can advise a company that's going through just a strategic acquisition, or that's going through, or in the beginning, I can advise a company that is making those first handful of key hires and trying to land those first key opportunities. But there comes a stage at which there is a better investor. So what happens is, and what we typically do, and I think that other best VCs do, is you'll bring in later stage investors to invest in that next round, who will then take your board seat. And we'll retain our equity. We're not selling out of our position. We just recognize that there's a stage at which they need something else. They need something else out of a board. And I think that's an important attribute of an investor, and just as somebody who is trying to grow that company. And sometimes it also means a change in leadership. Those can be planned situations, or they can be uncomfortable situations too, where you have an amazing startup CEO who's not a great operator, and is not the one that's suited to take it long term. Having those conversations, having them be collaborative, and that's where executive coaching comes in, because you're having those conversations as you move along, as opposed to being surprised one day. And that's an important kind of self-awareness that I think any emotionally intelligent leader owes it to themselves and to their people to have.
That's tough to do. I mean, you hear the big stories of like Steve Jobs getting pushed out of Apple, then having to come back later on. Mark Zuckerberg, same type of thing early on, thinking about being pushed out. Is he the CEO that the company needs right now? And then this is your baby. Like you gave birth to this company, and now you're like almost being pushed out. I think that's where that executive coaching, I think, is crucially vital, because you're right. It's not a surprise. It's now you're starting to think, okay, well, what can I do best for my baby to grow? What can I do best to put them in the situation to keep going? And it gets beyond that individual CEO, because now you have your staff, and you have your customers, and you have all these other things that you're starting to think about, that the ego kind of blocks from time to time, because you're going to replace my seat. What are you thinking? Right? Like, that's going to be a tough conversation. But the vision shifts, right? And so that's kind of my next question here is as the leader of your team here, as your company kind of grows and evolves, where do you see yourself? Where are you today? Where do you see yourself in the next couple years as a company, as a venture group?
Yeah, so our unique niche is that we focus on an area that we call the mid-continent, which is really like the middle 7 states in the U.S., from Texas to Kansas, New Mexico to Missouri. And we see our next evolution being to develop more of a physical footprint across that area. It's an area that we've defined because of the sectors where we focus, but also our network and our know-how. That's where we have our edge. And it's an area that we think is overlooked by coastal VC. Our home base is Oklahoma City, and that's where we really have grown the team. But we see ourselves having a physical presence throughout that market, but also starting to develop investor leads that can really specialize more in our different themes. So one theme is energy and logistics. There would be advanced manufacturing, mobility. And so, for us as a firm, and as I think about how we grow, it's going to be having, developing more specialized talent in those areas. And that means that, my job changes over time. And that's really how we try to think of that. And then we want to be very close to where these companies come from. And that's why we want to have a physical presence in those different areas. Like right now, we're working with some amazing partners to have a physical presence in Bentonville, Arkansas, home of JB Hunt and Tyson Foods and Walmart. That's an area that is really accelerating their development in supply chain and logistics technology. Well, we want to be there at the heart of it and find those companies at the earliest stage. And that's why we collaborate with partners and have a physical presence in areas like that.
Let me ask kind of a personal question. I'm a big Forrest Gump fan, and when he invests in this fruit company, right? He has this line in there. He says, "Mama said there's only so much money a man needs, and the rest is for showing off." You got a 9-figure exit, and for a lot of people, that's a ticket to go do whatever you want to do. And here you are, kind of turning that money around again, helping other people achieve their dreams. What's it like to get a 9-figure exit, and why come back into the entrepreneurial space? Why not go live on a yacht somewhere?
Well, perhaps this is an important educational moment for people who dream of having big exits, and also a moment of transparency for me. So when you build a company and you have investors and you have a big exit, that money doesn't all come to you. So, my company had, our family company had a 9-figure exit, but I think people should know that, like, even as somebody who's high up in that company, you're getting a small fraction of that. But, so for me, like, there's obviously more that I want to do. Even if it had all gone to me, I still think I'm the kind of person who is still hungry for more and wants to build more, and not so much driven by the financial aspect. But what we're doing now with Cortado Ventures is I get a lot of personal satisfaction helping that next generation of entrepreneurs. And by generation, yeah, I mean also younger people, but I also mean just like what's next in the world of innovation. So it may be a builder who is older than me, somebody in their 50s or 60s, but they see a better way, they have a new idea, and they want to just move an industry forward with that. So, absolutely, there's a financial incentive, and you can make a lot of money building companies and using outside capital. But at the end of the day, I think you have to find things that motivate you beyond just the capital side. And if you can do something that makes you feel good, then to have 2 layers of motivation, that's what kind of keeps you going when the times are tough.
Dude, 100%. Every man needs purpose. You need to have a reason to get up in the morning. And I equate it to like the carpenter who completes, that beautiful rocking chair and sits back and says, "Look, this is what I made this with my bare hands." And they have this pride beaming from them from what they've been able to accomplish. And I think that's how that visual for me is what I see you doing with the different companies that you bring on. You can help guide them, mold them, and then you can sit back and be like, "Look, this is what we were able to do. This is the pride that you have in the companies that you've put out." And it's key because you can see with the executive coaching that you're offering these people, I literally want to help you build the best rocking chair you can possibly build out of your company. I know that's old school, and you were talking tech companies, but for me, that's kind of the visual of the carpenter looking back at his work, and that's how I feel you guys are doing. If people want to reach out, they want to find out more about either being an investor or maybe bringing their companies to pitch and looking for capital, how can they do that?
Yeah, we're easy to find on our website, cortado.ventures. Pure and simple. There's no .com, just cortado.ventures. And if somebody is looking at being an investor, there's a way to get a hold of us. It's just investors@cortado.ventures. For people that are building their companies, for entrepreneurs, there's just a 1-minute quick survey on the contact part of the page, where you'll actually get a quick response of either, hey, this is not a fit and here's why, but here's some other resources, or this is interesting, click here to find a time to chat, and you'll be able to visit with one of our investor leads ASAP. And that's kind of the level of feedback we want to be able to give people. But also, if you're just somebody who wants to learn more about us, we publish some original content. We share a lot of what we're doing, again, on our website, cortado.ventures, on the news page. So we give an inside look on what it is that we do and what we're looking for in our view of the world.
Perfect. Well, Nathaniel, thank you very much for coming on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, look, business is a marathon. There comes a point where you're either going to make it a lifestyle business or you want to scale and grow, and you're going to need help from people out there. Sometimes it's capital help. Sometimes it's unlocking doors and giving you the opportunity to do that. Sometimes it's executive coaching, and Cortado Ventures is helping people do exactly that. So Nathaniel, thank you very much for coming on the program today. Any final thoughts before we head out, dude?
Man, just a lot of respect for people that are out there, in the grind and building, businesses. And there's going to be down times, but just, think of your future self and where you want to be, and keep pushing. So Matt, a lot of respect for everybody out there doing that.
Oh, the grind is real, my friend. The grind is real. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a happy Veterans Day. By the way, Nathaniel, thank you for your service. Appreciate that very much. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the long weekend. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.